Man, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of EOS. It's 10 out of Jake, man. I'm rocking with y'all, like y'all rocking with me. For this episode, I'm gonna be speaking on how I play with the same guns off Doom.
Blow, bitch. We play with the same guns off Doom, bitch.
When I was a jit, before prison. And before prison, my lifestyle was crazy. And I feel like it's a perfect time to speak on this story, especially with all the shootings that are going on in Boston, in the city that I'm in, the shootings that are going on in Chicago with all the kids that are being shot lately. I mean, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds. It's insane. And I want to give my perspective on how I got into guns at an early age. Now, living up north before I moved down to Florida, I had no idea how common guns were. I only saw guns illegally. I never saw anyone that could legally own a gun. I never saw anyone that was open carrying or anything like that. And then I moved down to Florida. It was a culture shock. At one point, I went to a gun show. I must have been like, 14, 15 at the time. And I go in here and it's just this huge open building, like a flea market, an indoor flea market full of guns on every single table. And you can walk up, pick them up, check them out, point them at the roof. Everything. They got sights on them, lasers on them, whatever it is. There was a 50 cal sniper. They let me pick it up and it was heavy as shit at the time. I'm holding it up at the roof. They had everything here. Everything. Every gun imaginable, from Desert Eagles to gigantic revolvers. Just everything. And I was immediately hooked. You know, I loved the video games. I loved everything about guns. I was infatuated with them. And when I actually started picking them up on the street, it was almost like my first time taking a drug and realizing how good this drug is, realizing how it feels, the effects that it gives me. And before I even came down off the high, I just knew I wanted more and more and more. And I remember at the gun show begging my aunt, begging her, yo, can I get this for my birthday? Can I get this for my birthday? I think I was turning 16, so I was 15 at the time. And it was a Glock 19, and it felt perfect in my hands, and I'm holding it. And we're at the Glock booth, and you know, they're all trying to make a sale. They're happy and cheery. I'm a young white kid, and they're just looking at me like, yeah, he needs a gun. You know what I mean? This is Florida. This is normal. And my aunt, what's crazy about this story is she actually hesitated, as if she was considering getting me a gun, which is the best decision that she didn't make, obviously, because I would have done some dumb shit at the time because I had a stupid ass mentality at the time. But I wanted this gun. I'm begging her. I'm telling her I'm going to do all the chores, this and that. And in the back of my head, I knew I was going to do some devious shit. I knew that. I knew that there wasn't really a legitimate reason that I needed this or wanted this. I knew the feeling that it was giving me. And I was just consumed by this feeling, by this false sense of empowerment that I was going to get from this gun. You know, I always felt like I had something to prove at an early age. And it didn't come from the people around me. It didn't come from peer pressure. It came from growing up in two different homes and growing up with parents that I don't feel at the time necessarily wanted to be parents. Growing up with parents that had so much frustration and anger inside of themselves that at times that anger was taken out on me. And I was made to feel like something I wasn't, which was soft, which was weak. It gave me a soft and weak mentality. And when you run across somebody that has a weak perspective on themselves, a bad perspective on themselves, with something to prove to themselves, that's a very dangerous person. And looking back on it, I can see that in myself. I was trying to prove nothing to nobody but me at the time. And through doing that, I started proving myself to other people. And this eventually is what transpired into me going to prison. As soon as I found out how easy it was to get legal guns in the state of Florida, like just having an 18-year-old walk in, not having to sign paperwork, and can walk out with a rifle, walk out with a shotgun. If they're 21, they can walk in, come back out with a handgun. When I realized how easy it was to get guns legally, I realized how easy it was to get them illegally. And from that point on, I always had guns around me. I was bringing guns to school. I was walking around with them everywhere because at this point in time in my life, I had nothing to lose. I had no foundation like I do now. I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have a 750 credit score. I didn't have a daughter in my life. I didn't have anything to live for. And because of that, because I had nothing to lose, I had no fear of any repercussions that could come my way. I wasn't worried about getting caught. It never crossed my mind because, like I said, there was nothing to lose for me. I can remember clearly how it was my first time bringing guns around in middle school to my friends. I had a spot that I would hide it before I went to school. And when we got out of school, I would get it and I would walk around with it. I'd be in the mall with it. I could see how certain people looked at me differently, that normally brushed me off or weren't too concerned. But now that I had this medal on me, I could see that their reaction, they were more cautious, or they didn't want to be around me at all. Because I was eager in a sense. I wanted someone to say something. I wanted someone to start some shit. I wanted an excuse to just let this thing off. I was looking for it. I was dying for it. I had this very poisonous mentality. I felt like I was Superman with this thing in my hand because it was the equalizer. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter how bad you are. If you had one too, I have more shots than you. I made sure all my guns held an insane amount of bullets. We didn't have high capacity restrictions in the state of Florida. I could put a drum on it. I could put a double drum and have donkey nuts hanging out of the gun. I was so weak at the time that these things gave me strength and I kept them coming. It went from having one to having three, from having handguns to having AKs. And it wasn't like I had all these insane things, but no, I did have some crazy guns. I mean, there's a reason why I got a lot of these things tattooed on me. I tattoo memories and certain times of my life. Things that remind me of certain parts of my life. That's why I don't really remove my tattoos, because there was a time and a place for everything, and looking at them, it brings me back to that time. Whether it was a good time or whether it was a reminder never to go back to that time. And you know, with the people that I was surrounding myself with the lifestyle that I was engaging with, fighting, it elevates into something else. Fighting, you know, all it takes is one person to get shot and it's pretty much understood from here on out. We're not going to meet up behind the library at school anymore. We're not going to meet up at the mall to fight on Fridays. It's just, now it's gunplay. Now we want to hurt each other. Now we want to take it that next level. And it might not necessarily be you, but now the peer pressure kicks in. Who's going to show you're willing to go that far? And because of the weakness in my mind, I always signed up for it. I was always ready to go. I remember I had a friend, he was from AP, Alexander Park. They were going through it with somebody else. Everybody was supposed to link up at the movie theater in Tampa. I necessarily had nothing to do with it, but I put myself in it. And this is how stupid I was at the time. I knew that my aunt had guns in her room. I knew where she hid them. And at the time, my aunt was gone with her wife. They were gone somewhere else. I don't know where they went. I think it was like a little vacation or something. My grandmother was babysitting. I went inside of their room. I took the gun. It was a nickel-plated .45, big as shit. It was a government issue. It had the safety on the back. You hold down the trigger. This thing's going off, putting 45 ACPs wherever you point it at. And I took this big ass shit with me, put it in my cargos, and had this kid pick me up. And we drove over to his hood. And when we get inside of the house, it's all Chicos in here. There was this kid from AP, I forget his name, but he pulls out a 38 and a 357. He's got 2 revolvers. He's like, what's up? We finna slide on these boys. We finna get right. Da-da-da. I'm ready for it. I'm all for it. Push come to shove. We don't even end up going because they actually never slid. The other hood never showed up. We already had people that were at the movie theaters waiting for them. And when they came through and told us, yo, they're here, we were going to slide through and set them fucking fireworks off. But thank God they never came. And my stupid ass literally took a gun that came from my aunt, brought it with me, and had the intentions of doing something ridiculous, doing something so stupid with this gun that could easily be traced and reported back to me and my family. But this was the mentality that I had at the time. And it wasn't just always about being the person in a position of power and putting fear in other people. I can remember when I was shot at, and there was a couple of different incidents. But I can remember the feeling of helplessness and just hearing these booms going off. And my body just physically tensing up. Just waiting. Every time I hear a boom, I'm thinking to myself, is this going to be the one that's going to hit me? Am I going to feel this burning feeling that everyone's talked about? And am I going to make it? Am I not going to make it? Is one of my friends down? I just remember the feeling of helplessness, and I remember I never want to feel that feeling. So instead of looking at it from the standpoint of, well, if I remove myself from these people that engage in this bullshit and I stop engaging in the bullshit myself, I won't have to deal with this. I didn't look at it like that. I looked at it as, I need to strike first. I need to do it first. I need to slide first. I need to make sure that they're not doing this first, so I'm not ever in this position. This ass backwards mentality is what it keeps coming down to. Now, I've beaten firearm charges. I was arrested, charged with 16 firearm charges off of one case. And I was convicted on 2 firearm charges and a third charge of assault with a firearm when I later moved to Boston. I'm grateful that I never made a decision that costed the life of another person because of a mentality that I had when I was a jit, when I was a juvenile. I'm grateful that I do not have to live with that. That I didn't take a life, an innocent bystander. Because there was that time when a gun went off in my co-defendant's house and it went through the floor and it hit the little girl's bed under where I was standing. And thank God she was in another room at the time with her brother. But this was a little girl. And you know, I was so close to doing something that I could never take back. And I hear about all of these murders that's going on in society. All of these innocent people being shot. All of these young kids that want to gangbang and clash and go at it and kill each other. Through videos like this, I hope that some of y'all that are still at a young age or in that mentality or considering living that lifestyle can learn from these videos, understand what I failed to understand at an early age, and be influenced by some of these stories on these prison channels so that you don't fall victim to the streets. You don't fall victim to the system, and you don't fall victim to that weak ass mentality where you get a false sense of empowerment from a piece of metal. Because when you go to prison, that gun doesn't exist. When you go to prison, that gun turns into a knife, and you can't be down the street and just letting this thing off and not even seeing who you're hitting. You gotta walk up and put that metal in somebody's body. It's a completely different feeling. It takes a completely different animal to be able to do something like that. It's not something that you want to do. You do not want to desensitize yourself to the violence to the point that it becomes a normal thing to you. Because at that point, there's no turning back. You're going to be haunted by this shit. That PTSD is going to be kicking in. You're going to wish you never experienced that type of violence. And that type of violence is what can keep you in prison indefinitely. You can be given that life sentence. You can be given 10, 20, 30 years. You can be given 3 years like me, stab someone, and then never be getting out. As much as I loved guns growing up, as much as I wish that I could have my rights back and be a legal owner and go to the range and collect firearms, I understand why I can't. Because of decisions that I made in the past. I understand the poisonous relationship that I have with guns. And it's just like drug addiction. When I got out of prison and I was going into the drug programs, I realized how many qualities about myself fit the qualities of an addict. I realized how the 12-step program can be applied to anybody's life. Instead of trying to find something to cover up the weakness inside of me, instead of reaching out for an outside element and thinking that this thing is going to make me something else, I realized I had to look inside of myself and face it head on. And through recognizing my flaws, I could build my strengths. Through understanding that the only thing that was hurting me was my mentality, I was able to change that mentality and redirect my life. And of course, in prison, I was able to just sit there and look around at all the killers around me, all the people that are bigger, that are smaller, that are willing to go further than me, that are willing to hurt you in a way that you're not coming back from, and do it over and over and over again because they're not going home. I was humbled knowing that there's killers around me that can kill better than me. Doesn't matter if I have the balls to walk up and stab you. That doesn't mean I can do it better than him, because that's all he does. That is his foundation. He's done something in his life that he can never take back, and now this is the only thing that he can do. And he'll never be better than that DC number that he has. He will never be better than the inmate with the 2 sets of blues, the canteen in his locker, and the knife on his waist. I realized I didn't want to live that life. I don't want to live that life. And I hope that y'all don't want to live that life. But hey, it's 1090 Jake. I got some interviews coming up. Got some new videos coming up. Y'all stay tuned. I'm rocking with y'all, y'all rocking with me. Till next time.